Okay guys, here we go. Day 4, risk management procedures. Yesterday we talked about incident management, which is what happens if someone actually has an accident within the workplace. Today we're talking about risk management, which is taking the proactive approach to safety, and it's where we undertake a series of steps to identify and eliminate risks to someone's health and safety prior to an incident happening. So, I mean, in simple cases, if you're walking along a walkway and see a whole lot of boxes stacked up, the risk to that is that someone can trip over it or the boxes can fall onto somebody. The prioritisation is that it's fairly likely it can happen, but it's not going to cause a major injury. So we can use this process to prioritise a risk, manage how we deal with it. In this case, we'd eliminate it because we don't want that to be in the way for anybody to trip over, and we would move on with that. That would all be documented, as we keep saying, like a broken record. If you are maintaining your WHS compliance, you must have everything documented. So the risk management procedure talks through that process. Probably the most important thing within this document is to get to learn the steps. So you have here, you've got basically the risk management process is to step 1, identify the hazard. Step 2, assess the risk. So as I said before, if you've got some boxes stood up in a hallway, what's the risk that is going to cause an injury? We insure our car for the risk that we're going to have an accident. We all know that it's fairly unlikely we're going to have an accident, but the consequences can be quite high if we do. So we choose to insure our cars. Workplaces are no different within safety, and we assess the risk that this can happen. Once we have assessed the risk, we eliminate or control the risk. Eliminating the risk means we remove it all completely. Controlling the risk means we undertake some other sort of method to try and manage that risk and reduce the risk of it occurring to anybody, of injury occurring to anyone within the workplace. For example, if someone's working with welding equipment, you can't eliminate the welding equipment because they need that to do the actual job that they need to do. So we'll mitigate that risk or control that risk by implementing personal protective equipment, which would be your face mask, your gloves, your apron, etc. Or on machinery, we might install a guard, which is an engineering control, which means that we put the guard in place. So it's removing the chance that someone can get their hands inside that piece of equipment and hurt themselves in that way. So once we've eliminated the risk, we then monitor and review the hazard control. So just because you've put PPE in place now doesn't mean that's always going to be effective in the future. So we need to constantly review and maintain that vigilance, I guess, over those risks as we move forward. If you have been looking at our policy and implementation packs, implementation pack for day 4, which is today, has a number of registers and the like in there, which allows you to record your risks. So it gives you the ability to go through that, see the dates when everything needs to be re-reviewed, and go back and undertake that process. So this document takes you through in a bit more detail each of those steps. So identify the hazard, assess the risk, control the hazard, and review. That's the 4 steps to risk management outlined in this document. As usual with your free documents for each day, we have our checklist as well. The risk management checklist effectively takes you through, again, starting to think about your risk management processes and what you have in place, what you don't have in place. Take your staff through this, see what they understand and don't understand, to help you identify any training shortfalls you might have. So, do you understand what risk management is? Do you know what your reporting is? As with incident management, documentation is critical. If an incident if a hazard is identified, you must have the documentation in place to prove and show that you've gone through those 4 steps. So identify, assess, control, and review. So you must go through those in each process. Documentation, does everyone know what that documentation is? Do they understand that investigation process? So those 4 steps that I went through before. And are they all trained in risk management? So risk management training is all about training people to identify risks. If people don't understand what it is they're looking at, obviously they're not going to be able to highlight through your consultative processes in your toolbox meetings and the like what risks they've found. So you want people coming to your staff meetings, your toolbox meetings, any other consultative processes you have, and being able to effectively highlight any risks they've got. Because they highlight a risk, you may prioritise it, and if it's prioritised low, doesn't necessarily mean you have to do anything about it straight away, or it has to be expensive to fix. I always use the chain on the door theory. If someone comes in and says, well, people keep walking into the warehouse, it's a fairly high risk if you've got dangerous equipment in there, but it's not expensive to fix. Put a chain up with a sign on it, no entry, should keep 90% of your people out. So have a look through that checklist. As usual, if you have any questions or any concerns about anything you've received today, or you need help with the checklist or any clarification, please don't hesitate to respond to the email you've received today. We will get back to you as soon as we can and be able to clarify any questions or answer any questions that you have. Have a great day, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.